All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is when to use arcs, when to sketch arcs, and how to make round things. So we've already done for cylinders. Easiest way to make a cylinder is what? Circle. Draw a circle and extrude it, right? It's the easiest way to make a cylinder shape. Kind of obvious. Ta-da. But if we have other things on our drawings that have some kind of round piece to it, then it's a decision of, okay, how do we make that round thing? So like on here, we've got this fillet here, we've got the fillets here, we've got this round thing out here. Which of those things do we need to sketch round, and which of those things can we use another command to make round later, right? Same thing with this here. We've got these fillets here, these curves out here. Do we need to make those on the sketch, or can we add those later as a feature? So in Fusion, and kind of in all the programs, let's create a little box here so we have something to play with. We have the fillet command. So I talked about this on Monday about the fillets and rounds. Same thing, but different. So this is an easy way to add curves, tangent curves to an object. So we pick the edge we want to change, and then we can just add a curve to it. And it's going to be tangent to the other edges. So whether it's a 90-degree corner like that, and it's making it here.
Could you share your screen for me?
Sorry.
Sorry about that, thanks.
Or if I sketch here and I have some other angle cut here, let's say I'll make those two equal, so that way it's there, and I cut this out all the way, I can make that same fillet here. Thomas! And here, and you notice that the length of the curve is different, right? Same radius, but why is this curve a lot longer than that curve?
Because it was originally a sharper angle?
Yeah, more acute angle. It's got to make that same radius, it has to take out more of that piece, right? It has to take out more of that to keep that same radiant tangent. So I could also tell it to be a constant chord length. And so now it keeps the distance from point to point along the curve the same. So now it's no longer the same radius, because if I do that, and now I check this radius, and it tells me, oh, it's not talking about the radius, but if I measure that, come on. Come on. The radius is 0.566, but if I measure this, the radius is 0.5. It should not be the same. It should not be the same. Thank you for lying to me. They're not the same radius. No, but if I sketch there and I dimension, concentric. Oh, it's not even letting me make that concentric. So never mind. The point is, for right now, we're working on let's do radiuses, just the constants. But if I do it here, it's gonna be less of an angle. So I don't know why it's not giving me the right radius there when I do the chord length. But and this one, it is actually measuring the distance between the two tangent points. I don't know why the radius it's measuring is wrong. But if I do a constant, you can see it changes based on that. So I can do that here. If I have a slot in here, and I want to round this over, I can go in and I can pick this one and that one and then do it half of the width of the slot, right? That's math. We don't do math. Right, easier option is I do this, and I change my option, and I say full round fillet. And now I can just pick the middle face, and boom. It rounds it over. So before the slot command came around, this was the way we would do this stuff a lot. Because it can do that one, but it can also do this one. And then if I go in and edit that sketch, it adjusts automatically. Okay? A lot easier than having to go in and do the fillets on the sketch and things. And if I want to turn it off, I can just click on it and say suppress. It goes away. Still grayed out here, I can just come back in and say unsuppress. It comes back. Or, I haven't shown you guys this yet, but you write the little marker here at the end of your timeline, you can grab that and go back in time. And then make changes and then go back forward in time. So if you realize, oh, I needed to add a feature here, you can go back here, you can add something, and then go forward back in time to relate it to it or something. So that's kind of the basic. So using those, basically you pick the edges, so the fillet there.
What about the rule fillet?
Rule fillet. So let me get to that in just a minute. So by default, this one called tangent chain is turned on. That means if I pick this edge, it's automatically going to roll around the edge. So anything that's tangent to it, it's going to continue with and do all at once. If I have tangent chain turned off, now it's going to do just this one edge. I can always hold Control and pick other ones. Oh, that one's not going to work because it can't do the curve ending in a straight line. But I could do the two edges without the curve. I could do that. So some stuff it won't let you do because it won't know how to end that over here. It's like, I don't know. It wants to end smoothly. So if you do that, then it can go, but it's not going to want to end just at a point. Could I make it do that? Sure. So if I pick here and I do, where is it? Fillet. I change this to variable. Now I can add a point here and say, at this point, I want it to be 0. At the start point over here, I want it to be a 1/2 inch, and I want it to end at a 1/2 inch. No, wait. Start there. Now make that a 1/2 inch. Make that 0. Make that 0. And why I want to work. Oh, I don't see. It doesn't want to do that, but you can see if I make that the end something other than 0, it'll kind of go down and back up. So the variable radius fillet lets you make the radius change along the curve. So I can make it like 0.4 there. So I can do all kinds of stuff like that.
I was wondering how to make non-standard uneven features like that.
Yeah, so that'd be the variable radius fillet.
That seems really useful for like cylinders and wanting to create like waves or something like that.
So in doing like, molded parts and stuff like that, you can do that. But the roll surface is, we can say all edges on this thing need to be this, and you can say rounds only. So this face only has rounds, but I could say roll fillet. So what I want, so I could say this whole, I guess I can't do that whole thing, but I can just pick all of this stuff, or I guess I can just pick the features here off the list. So I can just pick all the features here, and I say, oh, I want only rounds to be 0.12. You can see? Only things that were rounds got added fillets to it.
Could you run through that one more time?
So you can do fillets, tell it a rule, and then for here I'm just going to pick my features. I just kind of picked all of it. And I'm going to tell it, if I say rounds and fillets, and I say 0.12, it does everything. If I do rounds only, now it only does the rounds, only the exterior curves. If I do fillets only, it does only the interior curves. So there, there, and there.
How?
So I could say, oh, it rounds only there. And now I can come back again and say, again, for those things, fillets only, and make it a different number. So like I said yesterday, looking at drawing, or Monday looking at drawings, you can have all fillets this, all rounds this. The rule fillet is a quick way to be able to do that. And it doesn't have to be on all the things, it could be just on those two features. Or it could be just the rule fillet between this face and those faces. It's fillet, so it's going around the edge. But if I did just between this face and those faces. Between facing edges. There we go. So there we go. So if I do between faces and feature, I pick face 1 and then feature face 2. So now I can just pick exactly which faces I want this to be tangent to. Or add the fillets on. So I have a lot of control about how I can do it without having to pick all the individual edges. So again, I can just do it between this feature and that face. And it'll automatically add in those fillets. So this is probably one tool that I don't use as much as I probably could. Just because I'm used to just going through and picking the edges I want to change. So for me, this is an area I'm going to try and work with more. It's always been there. It's a command I don't use that much. Should I use it more? Maybe. Does it really hurt me? It costs some time sometimes. But some things might be easier, like that hexagon. So or if I do that, it's a polygon, pick it here, click. So when you're drawing a polygon, it's always going to ask you the number of faces. So to tell you if you want to do an octagon, see, don't type numbers. So don't hit tab, so it gets over to there, and now you can hit that number, and now you can change the number of faces. So if I hit tab, so it highlights the number of sides, I can change the number of sides, and then it'll go back to here, okay?
How do you get back after?
So just, anytime you move, it'll go back to editing the diameter.
Okay.
So you have to kind of let go of the mouse, hit tab, change the number of sides, and now you can start moving again and it's on the right number of sides. So I can do that, click. Whenever you use polygon, it's automatically gonna not line up. It's not gonna lock it in. So you always have to make something horizontal or vertical. That way it'll line it up the way you want it to be lined up. And now I can dimension where my center is. And then my distance, either across the flats or across the points, whatever dimension you've got. Now I can extrude that through. So my old way would be I'd click fillet and I'd go, oh, no. I'd do regular one and I'd pick every single one of these edges. So you can pick through the part. If you know where that edge is supposed to be, you can click it through the part. See that? I don't have to see the edge. Over here it gets a little confusing. Oh, that's the bottom one. This is the one that actually goes up to the edge. This is the one that's sometimes confusing here. So I can do that. But if I did a rule fillet, and I pick between faces and features, I pick that face, and then I pick that feature. Wait, no, that's not what I want. I want just all edges in this feature. Oh, see, that does the bottoms too. Maybe that doesn't work in this situation. Trying stuff out.
Question.
Yeah.
So is the polygon only set to 8 faces?
No.
Can we?
So as you're drawing the polygon, so after you click, hit tab, and
okay.
and then we can tell it how many faces you want, and then as soon as you start moving, it'll change to that shape.
Gotcha. Okay.
So hit tab, hit 4, now you got a square. Hit tab, get to where it's just an individual number, not the diameter, say 16, now we've got whatever that is.
Okay.
Right? So you get 5, now it's a pentagon. So, but if this hole went all the way through, and I did that rule fillet for there, now it does what I want, right? Because there's no bottom surface. So there I know. If it's going all the way through, I can do a rule fillet, grab all 8 of those edges at once. I don't have to click them individually. But if it's a blind one, yeah, now I need to go and pick them individually. So, you know, a little bit easier for some situations. I just learned something. Again, that's 2 light bulbs today. Okay.
Can you put an ON after that?
Oh, very nice, Ron. All right, so that's when if we have things we can draw a square, we want to just add fillets to it. It makes it easy. It makes it easy to change. We have lots of options on how we do that. But sometimes we need to sketch the radius in there, right? What kind of gives us the rule of when we need to sketch the radius? When we would need to include the radius on the sketch? Any ideas? I said it earlier.
What's the question again?
When would I actually need to make the radius on the sketch? So if I'm going to create the sketch and I need to do something and I need to have the radius show up on the sketch, instead of being able to draw a square or a triangle with a sharp point, when would I actually need to have that radius show up in the sketch?
When you're doing an arc?
When they're not the same.
Because here I needed an arc, but I was able to draw a square and add the fillet.
Oh, okay.
Same thing here, same thing when I did it here.
When you don't have an edge to work on,
So what do I have?
you have a sketch to work on.
The center. If the dimension goes to the center of it, so like on this one, the dimension goes to the center of this thing. Now I need it, right? Because I want to be able to tell it the center to center distance. I don't want to tell it, I don't want to do the math to come all the way out here and then add the fillets in, right? Because now I have to do the 1 inch plus half of a quarter. So now I have to make it 1 1/8 inches. I don't want to do the math. It's easier to draw the curve and give it a dimension to the center of the curve, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In that case, I need to draw the sketch, the thing with the curves on the sketch. Even on this one here, I could just draw a rectangle and then come back and add fillets to it as features, right? But because there's a sketch command called slot that gives me this entire shape with one command, I'll sketch it. Because I'm not doing extra work. It's actually saving me time. And I know that in this situation, it's probably always going to have those curves there, right? So might as well do it there. But things that are like these, adding these on the sketch isn't gonna save me more time. It's actually gonna make the sketch more difficult, right? So now my sketch is more complicated, and adding a fillet there is super easy, right? Because it's just I click that edge and I get it. So out here, if it's just a tangent one, if I can draw it square, draw it square. If I need a dimension to the center of it, sketch it with the curve. That's kind of the rule. That's kind of my rule. And so if I'm doing a sketch, I'm not going to use the fillet command inside the sketch. Because watch what happens if I get this thing all dimensioned. And I'm like, oh, I need to add that fillet to it. So I add fillet. And so actually this one actually worked kind of okay-ish. But sometimes it blows up your dimensions. So sometimes the dimension will jump down to here. It just kind of works weird sometimes. But also, now if I want to take the sketch, if I decide, oh, I don't want those fillets, what do I have to do? I have to delete each one, make it sharp again in the sketch. That's a lot harder than just turning off a feature, right? So that's why the feature is easier. But if I needed to know center to center distance, then yeah, maybe it's important. Or especially if it's something that's not that, maybe it's, you know, a triangular like shape. So also here's another thing. When you click, if you hold, you get an arc.
Interesting.
So I let go, I click and I hold, and I get an arc. And so you can pull out. So if I just kind of pull straight out from the end, I can get an arc. Come over here, click and pull around. And now I can go back to my tangent. And now I've got this mess here. And so, but I can do some cool stuff with this. Maybe I tell it I want these two sides to be equal. And now I tell it that I want these two sides to be equal. Now this thing is kind of behaving a little bit better. And now I can kind of control center to center distance here. I can give it this distance here. I can give it that distance. Maybe I make this one and that one the same even. Oops. Make those the same. So now I can have this shape here. So in this case, because I need center to center distances, I have to sketch. There's no way I could draw this with sharp points, right? Because then I'd have to try and do the math to figure out where that sharp point is, and that is way more work than I want to do. So it's easier to just tell it, draw it here, the center. But you saw how much more complicated that is to draw, because now I have to make those tangent, and I have to line it up and all that stuff, right? But sometimes you get parts like this, so you have to do it. But if you can draw with a sharp point, draw the sharp point. If they're telling you where the center is, now you have to sketch it with the centers, with the radiuses. Yeah.
Just to review, the reason why on this particular one, we're not using the sharp edge is because after we came through and used the fillet, we were not sure where,
Yeah.
how much dip off, where it's gonna be.
Yeah, because here I'm telling you, I want the center to be 1 inch apart, and then I want the center to be 3/4 of an inch up from that edge. So then let's do a little. So that's the other cool thing here is we can kind of figure it out. So if I actually did want to do that, oops, that dimension. So when we create dimensions, you'll get this message sometime. It'll say over constrained sketch, adding this dimension over constrained it. Do you want to create it anyways? You can say yes, create driven, and it puts it in parentheses. That's telling you that this is just it's just telling you what it's measuring. I can't change this dimension to change the part. But if I change this one, This one's going to change and show me what it's measuring.
Okay.
So if I really want this to be 3/4 of an inch, if I drew it sharp, I'd have to make it 0.914. I'm sure one of you guys knows the I'm sure Emmanuel knows the trig to come up with this based on the other stuff. But even we don't even know the true length of this side. We don't know any of the true length of the edges. We'd have to foreshorten all of them. My trig is not that strong. I don't even know if that's trig. Not knowing both sides and having arcs there, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's more than just geometry for the math side. I don't know. I don't know that math. I admit I don't know that math. I don't have to know it because I can dimension to the center point. Okay? And that's why in this case I wouldn't draw the point. Because the center is what I care about, draw the center. Alright, so that's the only time I would actually sketch the centers. Or same thing if I had, I need to do a center cut off of here. And I care about the center location of this. So I care about how far that center is. Oops. Away from the edge. I care about exactly where that center point is. There. Now I might do this. Also, why isn't that a hole?
Oh, anything.
Not on anything.
Yeah, it's not a hole. It's not all the way around, going all the way through the part. That's not a hole. Can you use holes for this? Sure. I could use the hole command to do this because I could just put a point there, right, and use the hole command. I could do that. If it's not fully contained within the part, I'm not so picky. Because now it's just an arc on the part, right? So now I'm not as concerned. If it's a full round circle going into the part, that's when I really care about it being a hole. Okay? You see the difference? If you use the hole command for this, am I going to be mad? No. Actually, there's a lot of times that I will use the hole command for this. There's one of the sample problems for the CSWA has a big kind of circular cutout of the side of a part that's got a couple different depths on it. And for that, I use counterbore holes. Because I can create two concentric things at the same time with one command. That's easier, even though they're not holes. And so it's using the command to best suit what you want to do. But yeah, and we'll do one of these also when we get to revolve, where we do this exact thing. We sketch something out here past it because we know we need the center of it. Okay, does that make sense? All right. So where am I? So that pretty much covers everything that I had in this next section, the 2.4. Oh, come on. Except I did include this one. So I do have a thing here for this part. It's pretty similar. So because it's not the same height, I do it as two different things. On the one from the drawings, it's the same height. So is it better to do as two different steps or one step? If it's always going to be the same height, maybe one. But if there's a chance they might be different heights eventually someday, do as two different things. The time to make an extra sketch, especially if one of the sketches is a circle and one of them is a slot, right? The time to do two sketches and two extrudes versus one sketch with one extrude isn't that much difference, right? I mean, let's see the time difference just to have a look at it. So if I did one sketch for the circle and a slot, and let's pretend I dimensioned it. finish, and extrude, pick, pick, pick. There. And then add the fillets. That's versus I do a sketch, I draw a circle, I dimension it, extrude, I do a sketch, I do a slot, finish it, I dimension it, and I extrude up to the top. So if it's the same height, extrude it up to the top. The time is about the same, right? Almost, probably the same amount of clicks. Maybe one might be a few clicks more. Which is better? Yes. It doesn't matter. But now on this one, by doing it separate, I can decide, oh no, wait a minute, I only want this one to go that high. So I get a little bit more flexibility by splitting it up, right? So this doing those two different things might be better. It gives me a little bit more flexibility. So take that into account when you're doing it. What might change, right? Keep that in mind. Keep them simple. Simple things are easy, right? Don't overdo it. That's the big thing that people try and overdo. Also, no fillets there, right? Because fillets there is really just do a regular fillet, bam, bam, and the fillets are there, right? So, hole here, hole, click anywhere, doesn't matter. Now pick that edge, and it centers it up. Change the settings, okay? So, remember, you don't have to be, when you're placing your thing down, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can always move it around, okay? Any questions? All right, then I will stop recording there.